Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money and Change. My name is Ira Robinson. We're here with Stu Shear as always. Hello, Stu.
Hi, Ira. How you doing this beautiful hot day?
It's not too shabby at all out there, and definitely keeping warm.
And it's going to get warmer and wetter, too. I guess we have a tropical storm coming up from Houston, Texas.
It's a lovely one.
We're supposed to get a lot of water, and that'll just make my tomatoes really take off and grow really well, and all my cucumbers. You know, it's really going to be neat.
Absolutely.
And then I'm going to have to mow the yard because it's going to be a jungle out there. Oh, well, hey, we had a good time in Frankenmuth, Michigan, and really good time at the Bavarian Inn and seeing some of the shops. If you get a chance, you know, and you're within a driving range to Michigan. If not, hey, fly in, you know, whatever. But Frankenmuth, Michigan is a really neat place to go. And you don't need to speak German to get around there, but it helps. Anyhow, we also had a good time in the Fort Wayne area with none other than Ira Robinson and family. We got to meet them for the first time, even though we've talked on Skype and on the program for a little over, about 3.5 years?
Somewhere around in there, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around in there. So anyhow, we had a good time and a safe trip back home. So anyhow, we've got some shout outs to do. You know, WCET FM 101.7 in Columbia, South Carolina. Hey, thanks for carrying the show. We really appreciate that. So for the people in Columbia, South Carolina, hey, big thank you. Listen in to FM 101.7 and listen to Money and Change. Also, L&M Radio Network with Michael Vera. And did Michael finally get his computer?
He did indeed. We took all weekend to get it all set up and running, and he's back in business now finally. So,
yeah, anytime you have a computer that's running some stuff in the background for your radio show, and it suddenly takes a dive on you, totally dies, and backups are difficult. I can really feel for Mike when that went down.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you get a chance, listen to us and other shows on L&M Radio Network. And there's also a chat room there and some great people in the chat room. So, you know, when you want to get in there and listen to them and listen to the shows and so forth in the chat room. Also, Open Eyes Network. Let's see. I think I know somebody on Open Eyes.
Indeed, yeah, that would be me. That would be me. Yay.
You?
Yep, you guys can check that over at openeyesnetwork.com. All of our archives of all of our shows are available over there. And we're also on YouTube, youtube.com/c/Open Eyes Network. And we're also starting to do all of our live streaming on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Open Eyes Network as well.
You mean we're going to be on Facebook too?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to see how we can do adding the archive of Money and Change onto there. And if we can get it to work right, then, yep, the Money and Change will be over there as well.
Oh, son of a gun. Now we'll have a whole bunch of places listening to us. You know, I mean, we put out some pretty good information once a week. And, you know, it's really great that WCET and L&M and Open Eyes are picking us up. That's really good. And to be on Facebook, hey, that's even better. You know, we've also got Shana Knack over at the University of Findlay. And if you want to check out the University of Findlay, it's a good school to send your students to or your kids to. It's www.findlay.edu. They have a fantastic pharmacy program. They have a fantastic business school that's going to go into brand new facilities here in the fall. And I've seen that building. It's going to be beautiful. And they've got some very good professors there, too. So you want to check out the University of Findlay at www.findlay.edu. And a big happy anniversary. Actually, it's the 300th anniversary of Freemasonry in the United States. And on June 24th, now, hey, that's coming up pretty soon, there will be celebrations all over the United States because the Masons have been in the U.S. since 300 years ago. That's fantastic for an organization to last that long. And according to some history, Freemasonry began over in England back in, I believe, 1703 or thereabouts. And later on, it came to the States when the colonists came over. And so that it's been 300 years. Wow, I haven't even been around that long. Some days I feel like it, but that's fantastic. So hats off to the Freemasons. Now we've got a disclaimer to do before we get on to the show with all the information. So the information contained in this presented material is from the posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We are not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for purposes, so you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, from the currency chart at xe.com at 4 o'clock today, the euro dropped a penny from last week. It's down to $1.11. The Great British Pound dropped 3 cents. It's down to $1.26. The Australian and Canadian dollar are at 75 cents each to the U.S. dollar. The Swiss franc dropped just a tiny bit. It's down to $1.02.9 to the dollar. And that's Swiss franc. The Japanese yen stayed the same. The Chinese yuan dropped 1/10 of a cent. It's down to 14.6 cents. The Kuwaiti dinar, well, it's worth a little bit more. And it's at $3.29. The Vietnamese dong, hey, the wheelbarrow got heavier. It's up to 22,721.97 dong to the dollar. Bitcoin, wow, Bitcoin is going up and up and up and up. And last week it was $2,699.31 to the Bitcoin. And now it's $2,686.66 to the Bitcoin. So it took a little bit of a slide, but it goes up and down and up and down. And boy, we've got some information on Bitcoin here in just a little bit. Actually, Ethereum, which is a kind of a copy of a Bitcoin. Gold. Hey, last week gold was $1,278.56 an ounce. It's down to $1,250.30 an ounce. Silver went down. It's down to $16.58 an ounce. If it goes any lower, hey, you might want to consider buying some silver if you want. Just remember, pay down your debt, put some money aside, buy some long-term food, put some money into water purification, get your vitamins and your medications before you even do that. Platinum dropped down to $926.40. Palladium jumped up. It's up to $889.18 an ounce from $855.52 an ounce. Well, let's talk about cryptocurrency today. The Giza Death Star was the source for this one. And cryptocurrency rogue hacking groups and financial clearing. And what they said in the article, they said, color me crazy, but I've never been on the cashless side bandwagon for a variety of reasons, not the least being that of anything Mr. Global Baloney is for. Well, cryptocurrencies in this light always struck me as being too good to be true, and their principal selling point, security and privacy, a little too convenient. They struck me then, and they strike me now as being tailor-made to press Mr. Global Baloney's desire to move everyone to cashlessness, which brings me to my second reason for skepticism, the integrity of cyber systems in general. Why anyone would trust such a system is beyond me, especially when, if one wants to turn the clock back a bit to the 1980s, there were already stories circulating about computers being sold with clipper chips that allowed your local not-so-friendly three-letter agencies access to every electronic communication. Then, of course, came the INSLAW promise, INSLAW-PROMIS scandals of the late 1990s. I don't think we had computers in the 1890s. And we were off and running. Now, in that context, consider the following that was written by Rich Hardy. A very intriguing article. Shadow Brokers Hacking Group reveals bizarre data dump subscription plan. Several things caught my eye in this article, and we'd be here for days if I were about to pull them, but I want to draw attention to the first thing that really leaped off the page. The Shadow Brokers first appeared in 2016, announcing an auction to sell off a set of security exploits the group purportedly stole from the NSA, or the National Security Agency or Administration. After the auction failed to reach the absurd asking price of 1 million bitcoins, the group publicly released 4 sets of exploits over the following months. One of those exploits contained the now infamous Eternal Blue vulnerability that underpinned the recent WannaCry attack. Since the WannaCry outbreak, the Shadow Brokers have been threatening to release more NSA hacking tools. And in early May, the group published a blog post in broken English, ominously announcing a bizarre subscription model offering members a monthly haul of data. The group described it as a new monthly subscription model. It is being like Wine of the Month Club. Each month, people can be paying a members-only data dump each month. What members are going to do with the data after that is up to the members. In a follow-up post published even more recently, the group explained the process in greater details. Subscribers can pay 100 Zcash coins, equivalent to over $20,000 US, to access the data dump, which will be revealed in the first 2 weeks of July. Hey, that's coming up. Zcash is a relatively new cryptocurrency launched in October of 2016. Purportedly more secure than Bitcoin, the Shadow Brokers' use of Zcash seems to be less about using a safer cryptocurrency and more about revealing to the public the government's connection to its development. Sounds interesting there. Well, you go on, and the Shadow Brokers blog post explicitly points out that the development of Zcash is allegedly linked to the Department of Defense, DARPA, D-A-R-P-A, and Israel. Well, the report goes on about high-octane speculation of the day. The hacking group Anonymous seems to have dropped off the radar to be replaced with the Shadow Brokers. And that raises interesting questions. Has the former group simply rebranded itself and reemerged under a new name, or did the former simply cease operations, or are they two discrete groups? The new group is exposing the alleged attacks and links and so forth of the new cyber currency to the U.S. Department of Defense, DARPA, and Israel. And that said, cyber currency has a backdoor built in, which of course raises the entire objection that I have to the whole idea, and that's what is to prevent any cyber currency, state-sponsored or otherwise, from having a similar flaw. There's nothing. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your computer secure. You want to make sure that you have a good antivirus. You want to make sure that you have a good anti-malware and that you use it all the time. You have to do that. Even if you're not using cryptocurrency. Now, there are some that you can use that are free. Malwarebytes is a good one. You can pay for Norton or McAfee And there are several others out there that you can get. AVG is a good one. Avira is a good one. You just have to do your research and you have to make sure that everything is updated. But you can get malware at any time in your computer, especially when the powers that be want to hit your computer with whatever. Is that correct, Ira?
It is. In fact, John McAfee, the creator of the McAfee antivirus software, just came out a couple of weeks ago and said that at this point in time, every single router in America, at the least, and elsewhere, probably in Europe as well, are already vulnerable and infected with different virus softwares that are ready to be triggered into the computer systems that they're attached to. So when you've got somebody like John McAfee, who is, a pretty big deal as far as the antivirus industry is concerned, saying every router in America is infected and it's just waiting to be triggered, there's a little bit of cause for concern there. So it's a good idea to do what you can to keep your computer system safe.
Are you saying that we might want to build our own servers?
Might be a good idea. Might be a good idea. Things like you could use things like VPNs and that kind of stuff to try to help to keep your computer safe as well. Although some people aren't fans of them because of the way that the bandwidth issues can be with a VPN system. It's not really that easy to use it, for instance, with me with doing broadcasting and stuff. But I still use them, so to keep myself protected at least a little bit. It's not a bad idea to look into that kind of thing.
Well, that's true. That's true. For every system out there, there's a counter system. And for every counter system, there's a counter system. And, it depends on whose mind is the quickest and the best at the time to develop any countermeasures that are out there.
Sure.
And from time to time, that changes. And when I was up in Frankenmuth, I was doing a little bit of research at night, and thank God for the Wi-Fi at the Drury Inn. If that's a plug, it's a plug. Beautiful place to stay. But I was on the computers there, and I was checking out different things for cryptocurrencies. And there was one Ethereum, Ethereum. And I remember that I was talking with Brad from Big Family Homestead on YouTube. We met several weeks ago, and he was talking about Ethereum. And I thought, I don't know about that. And so I went to do some research on it. And it's not like Bitcoin, but it has the potential to be like Bitcoin. And people are looking into it. It's got maybe some benefits to it. But I found an article on Zero Hedge that said Putin meets with Ethereum founder to create a national virtual currency. Wow. You take a look at things like Bitcoin, and there's a competitor, which is Ethereum. And in an article that Zero Hedge had, it said, step aside Bitcoin, there's a new blockchain kid in town. And Ethereum was still trading in the low teens, and the return then is roughly about 3,000%. But the most recent glance provided the perspective, according to the report, on where the competition between the two largest cryptocurrencies may culminate because, according to at least two venture capitalists, the market cap of Ethereum is roughly about $35 billion, and whose share of the market has been soaring will surpass that of Bitcoin at $43 billion. Although it changes by the second, sometimes before the end of 2018. Well, like I've said before, you've got Ethereum, you've got Bitcoin, you'll have Zcash and everything else. Putin may be a very smart person saying, okay, we may want to have a national virtual currency. You have to look at all the problems behind it. Because remember I said, it can be there one day and the next minute it can be gone?
Yep.
Well, there was an article that came out. Ethereum flash crashes by 96% after Status ICO clogs the network. And it said, while Bitcoin and recent Chinese and Korean momentum favorite Litecoin have been relatively stable for much of the day, Ethereum suffered dramatic losses on Wednesday, sliding from $360 to $260 before rebounding in the process, experiencing what they say may have been a first flash crash when it plunged by 96% from $315 to $13 on massive volume before rebounding. Wow. Dropped by 96%. Kaboom. That's it. And then it goes back up. The question with the report was it badly designed in the ICOs, plus selfish and foolish miners, major delays, and maybe even substantial losses for everybody else? I keep telling people, this cryptocurrency business, it can be here today and gone tomorrow. You could have thousands, you could have millions in cryptocurrency. And somebody somehow can get in there and raid it all. The system can crash. You're out zip. Oh, but I have it in my crypto wallet. Okay, so what happens if there's a massive virus that crashes the system? Somebody gets all your cryptocurrency and you have nothing. If you can't hold currency in your hand, you have nothing. Gee, but I have a silver certificate. I have a gold certificate. I can turn that. No, you don't have anything. You have paper. Paper, or as the French say, papier. It's just paper. It's worth nothing. Oh, but I can turn it in. I can take it to my dealer and get it. Yeah, right. The systems crash. Financial markets crash. You go in there, a piece of paper. Hey, sorry, bud, not my luck. Not your luck either. I'm out of business. I don't have any gold. And that piece of paper is worth nothing. Not a zip zilch. Sorry about your luck. If you're going to deal in precious metals, there's Kitco, Silver.com, APMEX, and a host of others out there. Do your research. And if you have any spare money, and I mean spare, with all your bills paid down and so forth, and you want to get silver, then go ahead and buy silver. That's poor man's gold. If you want to pay the big price for gold, go ahead. But make sure it's physical, something you can hold in your hand. If you can't, it's not yours. There was an ad out there. Oh, we'll store your silver certificates or your silver for us, and you can keep your certificates at home. Same thing with gold. Oh, we'll let you keep your certificates at home. What does that tell you? They have the gold. You don't. You have a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is worth zip, zilch, nada.
You can keep this piece of paper at home, but that doesn't mean you're going to get your gold.
That's true. And if everything goes to hell in a handbasket overnight, like some of the economists are predicting, one of these days, you may have to use that silver certificate paper for toilet paper. There's nothing out there. It's scary. If you can't hold it in your hand, you have nothing. There's a dramatic pause there. I'm making an emphasis, and hopefully everybody is listening. Because if you're not listening, and you have some certificates, I would go back to that company right now and say, I want my gold. Here's my certificates. And if they say, oh, well, we'll produce them in 2 or 3 days or something like that, no, I want it now. Get your gold while you can. Put it in a safe place. You can find different ways to store gold, hide gold, whatever you need to do. I'm not going to suggest anything that might be illegal. Okay? But with the current political climate out there, the current financial climate out there, the problems with the banks, I would really say go ahead and think about it really hard and take that cash that you've got in silver and gold and get it out. Turn in your certificate. Take your physical gold out and store it someplace. Your physical silver, physical palladium, rhodium even. There are a bunch of precious metals out there. But be very careful as to what you do. I'm just suggesting. I'm not telling you. You take a look at some of the things that are going on in banks and investment companies. This last week, we had regulators are probing Rentech's secret trading code. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about one of the traders for one of the banks was using some type of a code to set the price of precious metals. Well, according to Zero Hedge, with the world's most mysterious and profitable quant fund, QUANT, Renaissance Technologies recently finding itself in an unfamiliar place under the harsh public spotlight, and worse, in the context of its co-CEO Robert Mercer's questionable political support of Donald Trump. We wondered 1 month ago how long it would be before regulators start sniffing around to uncover the secret sauce that has generated some $60 billion in profits for LPs of the giant money-making machine. According to the New York Post, regulators from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission are probing its secret trading code at Rentech, run by a Democrat and Hillary Clinton supporter James Simmons and Republican and Trump's most influential financial backer, Robert Mercer. The CFTC has reportedly asked to dig into the trading software at the $65 billion hedge fund. James Rowan, the chief fund's operating officer, told an audience of hedge fund managers on Tuesday in New York, according to 2 people who were in the audience. But like every other secretive quant fund, Rentech is pushing back against the CFTC's request out of fear that the code will leak, Rowan told managers, according to those present. Jonathan Hitchcock, Hitchchon, chief operating officer of quantitative hedge fund 2 Sigma, SIGMA, which manages an estimated $40 billion, was also on the panel, echoing Rowan's concerns. Hitchcock is on the board of the Managed Funds Association, which called out the CFTC for overreaching in its authority in a letter sent last month. The push by the CFTC to expose the trading code of the world's most popular quant fund comes at a time when investors are increasingly on edge about the threat of passive investing in a one-way market, with lingering questions about what might happen if all the quants start selling at the same time. The pushback by Simon's firm is the latest sign that the government is plowing into so-called quant funds, which use highly technical trading algorithms to try to beat the market. There's a growing area in the hedge fund space, more as hedge funds go on and increase. And that it also includes Steve Cohen's Point 72. These algorithms are often black boxes and so complicated that it would be nearly impossible to figure out what they're designed to do or why they do it. As longtime readers will recall, back in 2009, Zero Hedge led a brief campaign to unveil the mystery inside either Medallion or RIEFB, which, however, failed to penetrate Rentec's unbreakable armor. Now it's the CFTC's turn. Regulators are concerned that there could be illegal trading practice, like creating fake orders to move the prices of illiquid stocks, which are known as spoofing. Well, to be sure, it's not just Rentec that's on edge. The Post notes that actually last year the CFTC first outlined the regulations that would allow it to scrutinize hedge funds and algorithms. Other major funds like Citadel and Two Sigma slammed the proposal, saying that sharing the code made it more likely that it could fall into the wrong hands. Well, the problem that as Rentec and traders know, is that the black box ends up in the hands of regulators, and it is as good as being public when they get it. Which is why in 2009, Goldman went ballistic when Sergei Aleknikov allegedly stole the bank's quant trading code and was promptly arrested and spent time in prison. Even though he was twice acquitted of the charge, though he's still facing charges on an appeal. That code was Goldman's secret sauce, according to New York District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. That was the secret sauce. So whether or not Rentec's most valuable asset leaks in the public here for those interests is the reason, according to the report, the public breakdown of Rentec's top equity positions as of March 31st. Well, they have these algorithms that are also trading silver and gold. Whoever thinks these things up has to be a mathematical genius and one heck of a programmer. But I'll tell you what, hedge funds and derivatives cause nothing but problems. And you have the large banks. If the large banks didn't get into hedge funds and gambling with investors' money, we wouldn't have had 2008. And that was a recession. It could have been much worse. But the economy of the U.S. still hasn't gotten any better. Sure, we may have a few more jobs, but it hasn't gotten that much better. So people are saying, oh, we're doing much better. We've got more jobs. Yeah, the jobs are slowly coming back. But just like I read the other day, Ford was going to move out a company that they had, I believe it was Ford Fiestas, wasn't it, in Mexico?
Yeah.
And now they're going to put it in China? That's not good. I thought it was going to come back to the States. But no, now they're going to move it to China. Why? Labor's cheaper. But is Chinese manufacturing that good? You know, I got a can rack from Thrive Life Foods. It was all based on key lock. It was manufactured in China. Follow the directions and put it together. You're going to move it, it fell apart. Nothing like Chinese ingenuity. Some things are good, some things are bad. And I don't know if taking and moving the Fiesta car to China is really going to work. Maybe for the Chinese market, but not for here. From what I hear, some of the cars manufactured over in China do not have any air pollution devices on them at all. Where over here, if you don't have air pollution on the car, you can't drive it. Unless it's vintage. And then there's an excuse for a historical vintage car. Speaking of cars, you know, we talked about subprime auto loans a couple of weeks ago. We have subprime housing loans. Well, gee whiz, what is subprime? Well, if you don't have good credit, but you need a car, and your car dealer says, well, we'll work a special deal out so you can get that car. They want to get that car out of their lot because of their lot plan. So they have to move that car. But then they work out some type of a loan deal with some bank or some institution that will take the loan to a person who maybe can't afford the car. They get the car off the lot. The subprime loan is made to the person who maybe they know they won't be able to pay. And maybe in 6 months, they get the car back and they have to resell it out of a used car lot at that point. Who suffers? It's not going to be the car dealer, and it's not going to be the bank necessarily, because they could repo the car and then turn around and resell it. Well, they're talking about good luck getting out of that subprime auto loan when used car prices crash. And Zero Hedge has written frequently in months about the subprime coming auto crisis that'll be prompted by a wave of off-lease vehicles that'll flood the market with used inventory over coming years. In fact, Morgan Stanley recently predicted that the surge in used inventory could result in as much as a 50% crash in used car prices over the next couple of years, which would, in turn, put further pressure on the new car market, which has already resorted to record incentive spending to maintain volumes. Well, of course, while, pretty much anyone has been able to purchase that brand new BMW of their dreams over the past 5 years, courtesy of a surge in subprime lending volumes. And getting out of those loans once used car prices crash and millions of Americans are left with massive negative equity balances won't be quite so easy. You want to ask Yvette Harris, who was still making payments on her 1997 Mitsubishi nearly a decade after her car was repossessed. That's right, 10 years after her car was repossessed. Now, during the whole article, it said, per the New York Times, more than a decade after Harris's 1997 Mitsubishi was repossessed, she's still paying off the loan. She had no choice. Her auto lender took her to court and won the right to seize a portion of her income to cover her debt. The lender has so far been able to garnish $4,133 from her paychecks, a drain that at one point forced Ms. Harris, a single mother who lives in the Bronx, to go on public assistance to support her 2 sons. And she said, how am I still paying for a car I don't have? Well, for millions of Americans like Ms. Harris, who have shaky credit and had to turn to subprime auto loans with the high interest rates and hefty fees to buy a car, there's no getting out. Many of those auto loans, it turns out, have a habit of haunting people long after their cars have been repossessed. And while the aggregate subprime auto credit balances are nowhere near the trillions in debt that was extended to subprime mortgage borrowers, leading up to the Great Recession, for many low-income Americans, the fallout could actually be worse because they simply can't walk away. With mortgages, people could turn the keys into their houses and walk away. With auto debt, there's increasingly no exit. Repossession, rather than being the end, is just the beginning. Low-income earners are shackled to this debt, said Shanna Tallarico, who's a consumer lawyer with the New York Legal Assistance Group. Essentially, the dealers are not selling cars, they're selling bad loans, said Adam Taub, a lawyer in Detroit who has defended consumers in hundreds of these cases. And many lawyers assisting poor borrowers like Ms. Robinson say they learn about their lawsuits only after a judge has issued a decision in favor of the lender. Most borrowers can't afford lawyers and don't show up in court to challenge the lawsuits. And that means the collectors win many cases, transforming the debts into judgments so they can garnish wages. And if used car prices tank, leaving millions of people with negative equity balances and defaults from auto loans they could never afford in the first place, you know what that means for new car prices. So here we have subprime auto loans. We have student loans that are in really deep doo-doo, if you know what I mean. We have mortgage loans, and can consider each one of those a bubble. If they start to burst, we have problems. And it's going to be big problems. And on another note, speaking of big problems, did you know that according to the American Legislative Exchange Council, they released a report, Rich States, Poor States? They found out that Democratic-run states are a total disaster and they have the worst economies.
Is anyone really surprised by that?
Gee, I mean, Homer Simpson would go, duh. I mean, really. You look at it. We've got a report on Illinois that's just going to blow your mind. But for the overall economic outlook for 2017, the top 10 states, all I can say is lucky you. Number 1 is Utah. Number 2 is Indiana. 3 is North Carolina. 4 is North Dakota. 5 is Tennessee. 6 is Florida. 7 is Wyoming. 8 is Arizona. 9 is Texas. And 10 is Idaho. Now let's look at the bottom 10. Oregon, Maine, Hawaii, Illinois, Minnesota, Connecticut, California, the granola state, New Jersey, Vermont, and New York. Gee, the bottom 10 are all run by Democrats or a large Democrat legislature.
And have been for a long time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, you take a look at Oregon. The Democrats control the legislature and the governor's office. And in Maine, the Democrats split control of the legislature with the Republicans. And in Hawaii, the Democrats control the legislature and the governor's office. In Illinois, the Democrats control the legislature. In Minnesota, the Democrats control the governor's office. And it goes on and on and on and on. New York, the Democrats control the legislature and the governor's office. You know, you put all this stuff together according to the report, and you can peruse all the data on income tax, property tax burdens, sales taxes, death taxes, the minimum wage, how many public employees there are per 10,000 in the state population, whether it's a right-to-work state, and much more. You can also compare states with these criteria as well. And according to the report, some states like New Jersey, Illinois are not shockers. They have Republican governors. Democrats dominate the legislatures. In New Jersey, Christie touted a pension reform, though the Garden State has a long way to go, with ALEC noting that it's actually underfunded by $235 billion, that's with a B, dollars. On taxes, the organization pretty much took Christie to the woodshed. And on the tax policy, the governor praised Republicans and Democrats for reducing the state, increasing the exclusions for the estate tax to be eliminated in 2018. But he failed to mention that tax cut savings are mostly entirely offset by the 23-cent per gallon increase in gas tax. This year's sales tax reduction of roughly 0.125% will save us a whopping $1.25 on a $1,000 purchase. The problem with government sometimes is government. And I'm not being an anarchist or anything like that, but what I'm saying here is that they expand government and government employees, and therefore they have to raise taxes. The more liberal the states, the higher the taxes. The more conservative the states, generally you have lower taxes. We used to have in Ohio some Democratic governors, and they loved to spend it on different programs. And we had a rainy day fund, in quotes, that was quite significant. So if the state had a problem, you could pay it off. If you needed to put more money into schools, you could do it. If you needed to put money into roads or whatever, the money was there. It was a rainy day fund, not to be touched. We get a Democratic governor that comes in, and he spends it. Oh, we need these social programs, that social program, so forth. Almost spends it dry. And there's nothing. And then we get a Republican governor, and he says, well, we have a mess. We have to rebuild this thing. We have to turn around, and all those new employees that the other governor hired, we have to let them go. Because we've overspent. You take a look at the states that are run by mostly Democrats and liberal Republicans, and I have to throw that in there. You take a look at those states, and they're in trouble. And speaking of trouble, there's a state official, according to Associated Press, in an article by Sarah Burnett, that the official warns Illinois' finances in massive crisis mode. It said the Illinois official responsible for paying the state's bills is warning that the new court orders mean her office must pay out more each month than Illinois receives in revenue. Now, if you and I did that, what would happen to us, Ira?
We'd be in a whole heck of a lot of trouble, to say the least.
Well, if debtor prisons would be around, yeah, we might be there.
It sure would.
Quickly. Well, Comptroller Susana Mendoza must prioritize what gets paid as Illinois nears its third year without a state budget. A mix of state law and court orders and pressure from credit rating agencies requires some items be paid first. Those include debt and pension payments, state worker paychecks, and some school funding. Gee, I wonder what happens with the lottery. Oh, do they issue IOUs? Gee, I just won the Illinois lottery and all I got was an IOU. That would make for a nice t-shirt. Then another article came out from CBS News. Could Illinois be the first state to file for bankruptcy? It says Illinois residents may feel some solidarity with the likes of Puerto Rico and Detroit. A financial crunch is spiraling into a serious problem for lawmakers in Illinois, prompting some observers to wonder if the state might make history by becoming the first to go bankrupt. Well, Chapter 9 bankruptcy protection could be extended to the states if Congress took up the issue. Although Stanford Law School professor Michael McConnell noted in an article last year that he believed the precedents are iffy for extending the option to states. Nevertheless, Illinois is in a serious financial pickle, which is why radical options such as bankruptcy are being floated as potential situations, or solutions rather. According to Fiscal Times, Illinois is the only state that's being operated by having no balanced and complete budget for almost 2 years. According to Bruce Rauner, we're like a banana republic. We can't manage our money. Sounds like Puerto Rico, too. And like Puerto Rico, Illinois has had a massive pension crisis. Its unfunded pension liability for the state's 5 major plans grew 25% alone. Well, there was an article that was also out by John Cass in the Chicago Tribune today that said, what do you do with broken Illinois? Dissolve the land of Lincoln. And he said, Illinois is like Venezuela now, a physically broken state that has lost its will to live, although for the moment we still have enough toilet paper. But before we run out of essentials, let's finally admit that after a decade upon decade upon decade of taxing and spending and borrowing, Illinois has finally run out of other people's money. Gee, socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. And those other people, including taxpayers who've abandoned the state, has caused things to get so bad that Illinois is facing a doomsday. Well, according to John Cass, he says, dissolve Illinois, decommission the state, tear up the charter, whatever the legal mumbo-jumbo is, and end the whole daggone thing. We just disappear with no pain. That's right, you heard me. Break Illinois into pieces. Give part of it to Missouri, part of it to Indiana, part of it to Iowa, part of it to Wisconsin, and part of it to Kentucky. Just carve it up and get rid of it. But he said our beloved Illinois has proven that it just doesn't deserve to survive. So why not let our friendly neighbors take the parts they want? As you can see by this map that they provided in the report, they call it Kevorkian, Illinois. The alternative, by not doing so, is pure hell, according to Cass. He said Illinois hasn't had a state budget for years. The state continues to spend money it doesn't have, and the state's credit ratings have dropped, increasing the cost of borrowing more money we don't have to keep the rotten shebang going. And the bills pile up. Moody's Investor Service says taxpayers are on the hook for $251 billion in unfunded public union pension liabilities. Hey, look what happened in Washington. Hasn't it been the same thing? It's scary, people. Politicians don't know how to run a government. They don't know how to spend public money. And if you start calling your state legislator and you say, hey, what are you doing to make the budget better? I don't care if you're in Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Timbuktu, or New York, or Florida, or wherever. You need to get on the phone and also to text and email your state legislature saying, hey, we want a balanced budget. We don't want to be paying for a whole bunch of junk. Run the state efficiently. And speaking of efficient, you know, Obamacare, they came out today with the Republican plan to change Obamacare. I guess they're going to keep it, but they're going to fix it. Myself, I would probably just dump it and start from scratch. But Ira sent me something today, and it said, Anthem MDY's leaving Indiana Health Insurance Exchange. And they're withdrawing from the Affordable Care Act's insurance exchange in Indiana next year. And both Indianapolis-based companies said Wednesday their decisions were based on fewer people than expected signing up. And the decision left about 46,000 Anthem and 31,000 MD Wise customers out. And the exchanges are the only way customers can get income-based tax credits to help pay premiums. And the insurer Centene Corporation, CENTENE, plans to expand its presence on Indiana's exchange.
It's a little bit concerning to me, as an Indiana resident, because Anthem and MD Wise both are major parts of the low-income healthcare insurance parties. Basically, MD Wise, we have here in Indiana a thing called Hoosier Health Wise, and Hoosier Health Wise is basically MD Wise controls what happens with the Hoosier Health Wise, which is the Indiana Medicare or Medicaid, sorry. And so it's a little bit concerning for people that are on that particular program, because right now they've made insurance available on a pretty cheap rate for a lot of people. So with them pulling out of it, what's going to happen to replace that in some kind of way? It's something to watch out for, definitely. But I thought it'd be interesting, considering that I'm here in Indiana and we're seeing the effects of this announcement already.
Yeah, it's getting kind of scary. And so we'll have to wait and see what the 143-page Republican document says versus I don't know how many thousands of pages that were in the original Obamacare plan. It seems like 143 pages is a lot nicer. Before we close out today, go to our website, moneyandchange.weebly.com, and check everything out. We've got everything on money and the national debt and preparedness videos, depression living, and so much more. We even have the Wrinkle City Gazette, which comes out once a month. But check us out, and if you can, donate to keep the show on the air. I donate all my time and research free to hopefully help some people out there, and hopefully I've helped you at least be wise to what's going on in the world of finance. But donate to the show to keep us on the air, to pay for the electricity and the bandwidth and everything else. And after all that gloom and doom, I'm going to tell you something about Wrinkle City's 12th grade exam. One of the questions was, what language is spoken in France? And 90% of the students said redneck. Another one was, what religion is the Pope? Circle the correct answer. Jewish, Catholic, Hindu, Polish, agnostic. And it said check only one. Well, what was their answer? I'll have to tell you next week because I hit the wrong button. I do that sometimes when I'm doing this. Daggone it. Because I've got things on several screens here. But what time is it when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 5? And the student said, I don't know, I have a digital watch. Well, with that, that's all I've got for this week. My digital watch is telling me that it's time to get out of Dodge. Hey, watch the show. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Open Eyes Network. Check us out on L&M. And if you're in Columbia, South Carolina, WCET 101 FM, 101.7 FM on the dial. And with that, that's all I've got. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Stu, for everything that you do. Everybody else out there, keep safe, have fun, and we'll talk to you again real soon.